Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Talking Peace Around the World. Our topic is, are women the key to securing a more peaceful future? And before we begin, I just want to show two things. I'm really excited. I've received these wonderful books from my dear friends who will be joining us very shortly. This book title is She Believed She Could, So She Did, and the other is A Gratitude Journal. So I want to thank my dear friends, HELENA and Ian Pelham-Turner, for gifting me with that and the fact that I got to meet Ian this weekend. And of course, we also have Daisy Gideon joining us. So let's welcome them to our show. HELENA, hello.
Hi, JACALYN. So lovely to see you, and you're more than welcome.
Thank you so much. And the man who really gets around, it's Ian Pelham-Turner back from Orlando. Hello.
Well, hello. This seems so surreal, doesn't it, JACALYN? Because 24 hours ago we were having breakfast together after working and doing a show at the same time in Florida. So I'm back, as you can see. You know, I'm peacekeeping amongst all these ladies today.
Fantastic, and it was definitely fun to broadcast live with you. I love that. So, all right, let's welcome Daisy. Hello, welcome.
Hi, how are you, JACALYN? Hi, HELENA and Ian. Good to see you again.
Hi,
Nice to
Daisy.
have you
On
with
the
us.
chat, talking peace.
Absolutely. Such an important topic. And I just want to start off with saying that Ian and I attended a conference that was called Women on the Move. And it was all about women who are empowered, who have really created an incredible career path for themselves and are really focused on giving back to others. So I just want to share that, the brochure, Women on the Move. Can you see that? Telling her story, almost like telling history, but it's her story.
Love it.
Fabulous. And
That's
also
clever.
shout out to Onyx Magazine and Mr. Rich Black and his team for putting that event together. All right. So before we begin, who wants to just start? HELENA, I'm going to pick you. Tell us where you're joining us from today and tell us what peace means to you. Very general.
Well, JACALYN, I'm joining you from North London. Really happy to be here. Peace means so much. I mean, in the broader scheme of things, there's internal peace, which is so important, incredibly important, really. I think really it starts from inside, and also an external peace, having respect, living in harmony, allowing people to achieve their best, and really just living happily and peacefully.
Thank you so much, HELENA. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go over to Daisy. Where are you in the world today, and what does peace mean? You're on mute.
I'm in probably the least peaceful place in the world at the moment, which is Beirut. I've been traveling around the country. Unfortunately, it's in a state of dire desperation. There is a lot of goodwill still amongst people. There's a lot of faith, but to me, there isn't peace in the sense that what we're talking about today. There's a lot of anxiety. So when I define the word peace, it's similar to what HELENA said. It's a place of inner contentment where you feel that you have hope and possibility, and around you is an environment where you can fulfill that opportunity that you want, that dwells within you. And sadly, that's not available to Lebanese around Lebanon at the moment.
Thank you, Daisy, and thank you for all the efforts that you are continuously making to help the people there in Lebanon.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ian Palm Turner, where in the world are you? What does peace mean?
Well, hopefully I'm back in London. I think this is not a hologram. But basically, what I've been looking at is a report by the Council for Foreign Relations that's done a report on how many women participate in peaceful negotiations. So the report comes out that between 1992 and 2019, women constitute really an average of 13% of negotiators, 6% of mediators, and 6% of signatories on major peace processes across the world. And there's a very interesting piece about Libya, where in Libya, which is very close to DAIZY as well, I think my geography serves me correctly, that 0 women were allowed to actually participate in any peace talks at all with the army, but only about 6% were allowed to sort of view their opinions on other peace talks as well. So I think for me, in reality, I've always said that women bring a much more broader view, a much more intelligent view of negotiations. When JACALYN and I were at Women on the Move over the weekend, there were 400 women businesses, very, very successful business makers as well. And we talked about peace, we talked about goodwill, we talked about the future, at the same time, kindness. And I think that, you know, women have much stronger attributes towards kindness, towards fairness, towards creating projects and agreements that can be a much better view, I think, of peace.
Thank you, Ian. Great comments from all of you. So what are your thoughts? I was just reading something that somebody expressed many years ago, I think to President Ronald Reagan, about the government's responsible for creating peace. And his response was, no, that it's the people, something to that. So I'm just paraphrasing if I got it wrong. Is it the government? Is it that we have to focus on who we're electing into office to get us into a peaceful situation across the world? Or does it just come down to every one of us? I'm not sure. Is it the chicken or the egg?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, you know, there are so many different socio-economic backgrounds, you know, so much to take into consideration: cultures, religions, belief systems, you know, and obviously governments that nobody really trusts. There's a lot of naughtiness going on, as we know, and I think actually it comes down to the people as well, you know, to lead, business leaders. I think we all are in our own rights. And I know I was speaking to Chelsea Baker, who she's a business expert from the Chrissy B show. I've talked about her before, and she's also the founder of National Mentoring Day. And really, to lead and be a mentor is, I think, the way forward. Greater success, and obviously you're passing this on to everybody. If we all pass on our knowledge, and education really is key, I think. And also, you know, our society today, if you think about it, although I find certain things a bit aggravating, this woke society, in fact, the younger generation are the way forward as well. You know, they want more transparency of our government. They want fairness. They want respect for all. And in a way, it means completely fair. Everyone's got, the talking stick. And I think slowly, I think we'll have more women, for instance, in parliamentary seats globally. At the moment, there's only 24% of women that have to have seats globally. Globally, women earn 23% less than men. But hopefully this is going to change, because it's been proven that, women have a huge amount of empathy, emotional intelligence. We're brilliant communicators and good at collaborating. And I know that resilience and other things as well. And Chelsea was saying as well that it was to do with an article talking about female-led boards are actually really have a brilliant success rate. Obviously not to say men are great as well, but we're talking about women predominantly today. So there are so many different intricacies that are all connected. So it's quite hard, isn't it, just to say it's one little thing. Anyway, that's my thoughts.
And I think it's very important as well to talk about how women's rights are being eroded constantly at the moment. So, in Florida, we were talking about, I forget the name of the governor. Is it Dukakis, the governor's name? Jacqueline?
No.
I'm not sure.
Okay. But basically he's against abortion rights and lots of these projects. And I was noticing that in this, the values that this organization was looking at as well, that zero rights were given to discussion for women in Afghanistan as well. And for me, when I see the erosion of female rights in so many areas, obviously in Afghanistan, the erosion of young girls not being allowed to go back to school again, and how they were in tears. They were allowed to go to school for one day just to be told that they couldn't come back again. That doesn't create accord or peace. That creates sort of a totally different climate, I would say, as well. And so I think more and more, we should be looking at as well is how to stop this erosion that's happening at the moment, and how to sort of instead really look at how to increase human rights for women. But I don't know what the other panelists think.
I was just going to say the governor of Florida is Ron DeSantis. So I just wanted to.
Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Look, my point on this, to your question, Jacqueline, is it the people or the government? It is the people that empower the government, that elect the governments in democracies. And it is the people, so it is the will of the people to empower those in those positions of authority. The problem that I've seen over time, decades, history, is that our elected politicians who campaign on platforms to win office fail to fulfill their promises, and they flip-flop around and they give you every excuse under the sun as to why they don't meet their obligations. And so it is the people that have the power. It's not the people that are responsible, however, because, to Ronald Reagan's point, he wants to pass the buck back on the people, but the people empowered you, elected you as president at the time, as they're electing governments all over the world. What governments are failing to do is fulfill the promise that they were elected upon. So to me, it falls back on those in power, because that's why we've given them power, because we entrusted them with that role. There is millions of people in different countries. They can't just pick up and overrun or override governments. And, you know, it is people who keep themselves alive in spite of governments failing to fulfill their responsibilities. That's my viewpoint.
Thank you, Daisy. Does anyone want to comment on what Daisy had to say?
I think sort of, as Daisy is saying, I mean, the failure in Lebanon, you know, which is, I think Daisy agrees as well, is really corruption more than anything. And the stoic fight by the lady who is hopefully still within the building. I don't know what the update is on that. But when you see women, and I think Daisy was telling me recently that this lady was in tears recently as well, the MP.
Dr. Najat Saliba, yes.
You know, your heart goes out, doesn't it? You know, because but when you have to fight like that just to keep something open, you know, keep the door open to a much more fairer world. It is very important to listen to people like that, and you know, I've tried to talk about it as well on different areas that I've been involved in. I think, you know, when it comes to you know, fairness, it has always seemed to me, I've always said, you know, I had to give a couple of talks on this Women on the Move, you know, and for me, women seem to have a much more balanced view, and so that they can look at sort of something, and they have a much more balanced view of how to create a win-win situation in business. But so if they were utilizing those same skills in the peace movements as well, you know, and were allowed to, that's the biggest thing, being allowed to do it, because obviously this report is saying that they haven't been allowed, women haven't been allowed to be a much more forceful role in peace negotiations around the world. And this has to change. This has to change, I think.
I'd like to add that it's not only, I wasn't referring only to Lebanon. I think it's a global problem. I witnessed it in Australia, where our government, you know, where I grew up, I witnessed the failings of many of our governments, Liberal and Labor parties. I witnessed it in American politics. I witnessed it in French politics, in, you know, and obviously the UK, you've seen it, you've witnessed it yourselves. I think it's a global thing, and I think that governments all around the world need to be held accountable far more seriously, and be brought to you know, account for their failure to apply the power that they've been vested with by their people, and fulfilling the, you know, the mandate that the people have given them. So, you know, I think Lebanon is a worst case scenario. Look at what's happening in Georgia at the moment, where the, you know, the president is trying to you know, enforce, remove the right of free speech, you know, silence the foreign media, limit their influence. You know, and going back to the issue of women, I agree 100% with Ian that women need to have far more input and far greater representation in organizations across the spectrum, in peace in particular, because like he said, and like we've all shared, we have a different way of looking at a situation for the greater good, not for an individual good. And whilst, you know, obviously not every woman in the world is pure or you know, an angel, there is the manner in which we perceive things takes into consideration far greater issues that allow us to resolve or to make a decision that is different, far different to what men, the line of thought that men usually apply. And again, I'm not applying this to all men, but the reality is we have a vast majority and, you know, a ridiculous you know, higher number of men, a considerably higher number of men in all of those institutions and all of those organizations, that it needs to be balanced. It needs to be brought back in line. I think this is a conversation we've been having for at least a decade or more, and we seem to move forward a step or two and then go back a step or two. It just keeps, you know, moving back and forwards, but there's no fundamental decision that's been made that says, here's, draw the line in the sand and that's it. I mean, there are companies now that have it as their as part of their constitution and part of their decisions that 50% of women in senior management have to be 50% of management has to be women. And you look at those organizations and you look at how successful they're, and I think that's where we need the decision to go, to that direction, where I don't know who can make that decision to make it global, but I think that's where we really need to be able to push forward the position of women, and there's no going back from that. You know, it's a hard battle, but it's one that we must fight for.
Yeah. I think, you know, international support is the way forward. And also, you know, talking about success stories, you know, talk about great women that have achieved lots and lots, inspiring people, you know, and thinking about, obviously, the younger generation really are the people that are going to be, you know, taking over as such, you know, empowering our daughters to grow into strong, confident leaders and, you know, celebrate their attributes from a young age. I think there's something, I mean, I know Dr. JACALYN, she does her courses as well. It's really important that we start this from a young age and, you know, really believing in yourself, as we know, is half the battle. And when people put their foot down and just say no if something's not right, as I believe our woke society now is doing and will continue to do, will mean that certain bad eggs will not be able to continue. There will be more transparency and fairness. But I do think, you know, we could go around and around talking about how awful it is and what can we do, what can we do, but we do need to talk about success stories. We need to inspire. That's really, really important. I mean, I'm talking about it just a few minutes before the show, but, you know, is it the Oscars that were on last night or yesterday in the States with Jimmy Kimmel, is it? Who's an American reporter. I mean, he was speaking to Malala Yousafzai, who was actually there because she was being put up for an Oscar for her new documentary, which is fantastic. Stranger at the Gate. Just an overview. I've not actually seen the whole thing. Roughly, it's about love conquers all. That's the whole story. And you know, how amazing is that woman? Fantastic. You know, 2014 Nobel Peace Prize winner. She has now the Malala Fund that empowers girls in, I think, 6 different countries to achieve their potential. And as we know, from a very young age, she, when the Taliban came in and told them, I think she's from Pakistan, isn't she, and that they no longer could learn, basically, and she's fought for women for a long time. She, from a young age, was reporting to the BBC and letting us know from over there how it was under a pseudonym. I mean, from a young age, how brave. And that's another thing, you know, when you have these brave women, fantastic. And unfortunately, she was shot in the head 3 times, as we probably all know. Survived it. She was brought over to Birmingham, UK, and as such is such an amazing woman. I mean, she's only 25 now, and she achieves so much, and she fights every day for girls and education. And that this is just one success story, and bringing it back to Jimmy Kimmel, who sort of spoke to her last night and just said something really silly he was talking about. It was something really inconsequential, and she sort of just looked at him as if to say, what are you talking about? And said, I only talk about peace. So that was her words. And it was that sort of mic drop moment, which I love. And, there's lots of stories like that I think we can share, and that we all need to remember, go in day after day. All these amazing women who may be not famous as well, who work tirelessly to make, give people a better life, or just to help in a tiny, minutiae way. All these little steps, it's what we need, and then things will change. Fingers crossed.
Thanks, Helena. I appreciate what everyone's sharing today. I just want to add one thing, which I believe that now, 2023, more women are empowering other women. More women are supporting other women. This has not always been the case. I mean, I remember many times in my life that female friends, they're right there ready to backstab and would love to see you fall on your face as opposed to rise to the top. So I think that that's something that we have to talk about as well. Are we as women really, when no one's around and in the thoughts in our head, are we really supporting other women to take a step forward and become empowered?
And I suppose it begs the question as well, what is missing? Because why do women feel like this in the first place? Daisy took me to the Hespel area, and we had this incredible meal which women had produced, and they'd spent 2 or 3 days and really brought all the ingredients, and it was a marvelous meal, and it was an incredible family. But I'm still haunted, and I can still see this young girl in my mind's eye. There was a girl of about 15, 16 years of age, and she was learning English, so she was testing her little bit of English on me at the same time. And I asked her what does she want to do with her life, and she wanted to become a pilot. And I'm thinking, my God, would she ever be allowed to do this? So there must be an ingredient missing somehow. That is it the education system that is teaching women in different areas that only expect so far? I don't know.
It's very broad, isn't it? Because again, it brings us back to what I mentioned at the beginning, that we're all different cultures, religions, socioeconomic backgrounds, and different beliefs, really, belief systems. So it's not one shoe fits all. That's why, from each country, things are different. Some countries of women are absolutely revered, and they rule the roost as such. But in other countries, especially war-trodden countries, as we know, unfortunately, women are used and abused, and it's a horrible situation. And how can you change that? I mean, if you're in a situation where you have absolutely nothing, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one.
I think finance plays a huge role in the capability of women to be able to stand up for what they believe in and fight for justice and fairness. It's a very important point. And women are often in relationships, where they get married, where they tend to, abdicate that responsibility to the husband. And unfortunately, we've seen it in many cases where, there's abuse, financial abuse of women. So it's a very important point. I just wanted to refer to that. The reality of, the opportunity situation that Ian was referring to in relation to that young girl in the Bakar Valley who wants to be a pilot. Yes, she's about 16. She's allowed to. It's just she has no means to, because her her family is poverty stricken because of the economic crisis. She has the intelligence, she has the capability, but she doesn't have the means. And that's what's really killing her and her family. She's a very bright young girl, but doesn't have any means of being able to, a couple of years ago, her father was working and making a good income, but they're struggling right now to even be able to afford to send them to school, because the schools are requiring that they pay their fees up front. And we're doing everything we can to help them in that regard. But these are the situations. And when you talk about Malala, what an inspirational young lady. I saw her in Sydney. She came out. There was a conference with her speaking, and she was such an inspiration. I think about 2,000 people attended, and you can feel the energy in the room. Her she's of small stature, but she's larger than life, and her will to defend the rights of girls and women was so powerful and inspiring, and one needs to be hailed. And I can't wait to see her documentary. But it shows you what one woman can do, and what many women have done. We've got great role models of history and recent, not only past, like current, recent history. Even Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. What an incredible success story in 3 years, what she's been able to do for New Zealand, achieve, tick things off, just get stuff done. There are women who show you what you could be doing and you should be doing. And it takes its toll on those women. And she recently resigned because of the toll on her personal life, her emotional life. But I think that we need to honor, and as you said, Helena, look at the success stories, because there's so much inspiration around the world, and we need to keep looking to those as guardians for us, and guides for us as to how we can shift, situations and rise to occasions where we need to speak. And JACALYN, where women, have they supported each other? Are they, pulling the ladder up behind them, or are they extending their hand to pull other women up with them? It's still a debate. I think that there isn't enough women, extending their hand down and pulling women up with them. I think that is something we can do, and we should do more. There are a lot of amazing women in the world, but to the extent that the men help each other, it's night and day. There's night and day. It's still, unfortunately, not denigrating the tremendous contribution of some extraordinary men in the world. And I've had the privilege to have them mentor me and guide me and support me, including Ian and Roland, and in my past with my businesses, with my career as a journalist, in filmmaking, extraordinary men. But when you look at men in power, positions of power, it's almost like they want to keep it in the club. They want to get their mates in there. They want to get people that, are going to rally for them. And this is why boards are, the majority are composed of men and friends and associates and lookalikes. They're lookalike. They know that character. They know, they know what that profile is going to do. And we need to break that model and behavior.
Great point.
I wonder partly whether, partly, I was brought up in co-education. In other words, boys and girls grew up together in schools, and so I don't see women as us and them. They're just friends, acquaintances, be it what they will. But in a lot of schools in Britain, for example, the grammar schools where it was either a girls' school or a boys' school, I always found that when I used to go to youth clubs early on, boys from grammar schools would find it but much harder to communicate. And I wonder whether one of the lessons that might be looked at is if you created co-educational itself, where both can be educated together, girls and boys can accept each other at a much younger age and can communicate together as well.
George, you know, this is a slightly, well, it is related in some sense, because it's all to do with believing in yourself, and bringing up girls to expect to do well rather than, you know, sort of teetering around and not being quite sure. But as for right or for wrong, I don't know quite how I feel about it, but it's good in a sense. There's a large nursery here in the UK, and they've just brought out a nursery handbook. And it basically, what they're saying, it's just an advice manual to the parents to either do to work with or not. It's up to them. It's not mandatory, but it's just that it was saying things like, you know, when talking to your daughters, just think about, don't say all the time, princess, you look so beautiful, you're so pretty, my darling, etc. You know, empower daughters, or equally so, don't say you tomboy, you know, it's another way around, but to empower daughters, again, talking about their attributes. And so they from a very early age expect to be confident leaders. And it's something so small, it just shows how our world has changed, and hopefully for the best. I don't know what people think about that, but it is obviously, you know, I think hopefully if you take that stance, your young girls are going to grow up to be in seats in Parliament.
I suppose as well, the who defines peace in the first place, and what is the definition of peace? Because if you look at peace, you know, if you look at Afghanistan, for example, the Taliban would probably think it's a very peaceful country now. You know, because well, virtually all rights other than religious rights have been abandoned. So they may consider that a peaceful country. And I wonder sometimes whether different countries have different values and what they consider peace to be.
Good point.
I think you're right on it. Just like in your own home, some people have chaos on a regular basis and they thrive on it. And to them, that's just normal. And then they leave their homes and go out into the world with that mindset. I know people who absolutely love drama. That's what their life is about. They think that's normal.
Very true. Very true. Defining peace, I think there should be a global definition that is adopted of what it means. So we're all on the same page.
Yeah, we actually could.
You know, but I mean, it's where politics comes into it. It's where religions come into it. It's where human rights come into it, and that's probably, you know, a lot of the time why it's very hard to define peace, because what one country may be seen as peaceful, another country may be seen as see it as a regime that is really meant to put down any person that has any opposite view compared to the leaders of that country. You know, so as you say, you know, sort of the definition of peace is probably one of the hardest definitions of the lot.
It brings it back to what I was saying earlier, you know, that we're made of different cultures, religions, belief systems. How can it's the same thing, not one size fits all? And in certain countries, no doubt, you know, especially by not allowing young girls to have the privilege of education, and it shouldn't even be a privilege, it should be something that everyone has.
is control. And where does that come from? You know, it's control. And how I feel is surely, what do the young girls feel? A lot of them want their education. Is this something that's imposed by the culture, the male culture in each place, each society?
I mean, there was a very interesting thing that I saw recently where I was on some public transport, and this young girl, Muslim girl, sat down in front of me with a hijab on, and then she turns her mobile phone on, and I think she was watching the girl that was murdered, who was that freedom girl that didn't have any hijab, didn't cover her hair, you know, wore makeup, probably more almost like a more Western style of video as well. And I think that was the one that got murdered. And the juxtaposition of her, you know, with what she wore and what she was watching, presumably this is what she wanted to see more of. It was a strange juxtaposition, you know, it's almost like two worlds for women, one where they're having to do something and one where they want to do something.
Wow, we should talk to her, Ian. I wish to ask her what she was thinking. It would have been really great to have that insight into what she was thinking of what happened.
Yeah, I mean, because it's always difficult, Daisy, as you know. I mean, you know, I'm a man in my 70s now, you know, and to start talking to a young girl, especially a Muslim girl, with a hijab on and everything, you know, it I suppose culturally may be considered frowned upon, I would sort of say as well. But it was such a juxtaposition of imagery that it's almost like she was daydreaming how she would like to be, but was really condemned to a culture that she probably felt wasn't giving her freedom. And I suppose probably one of the biggest ingredients of peace is freedom.
Free will.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are over our time for the show today, which just flew by. And of course, are women the key to securing a more peaceful future? That's obviously a big topic that we're going to need a lot more time than what we have today. But what would you like to share as we close out? Ian.
Well, I said at the conference over the weekend, first of all, I love women, but I love even more womanhood. And womanhood means to me brings peace to my life and has brought peace to my life for a long time as well now. So all the values that women have, intelligence, the ability to be kind, generous, spirited, and to create helpful situations is, for me, you know, if there was more womanhood in the world, the values recognized, then I think the world would be a more peaceful place.
Thank you, Ian. Helena?
I think one of the words, I think one of the things that one of the words I think really that helps with peace is tolerance. If everybody was tolerant of each other, I think that in itself would be a far more peaceful world. But also just to remember that we're born with our own gifts that we can share and offer the world. And obviously, if we use them to help others, again, wow, if we all do that, it's very simple. We'll be a very peaceful world. And something as well that it's a quote from Mother Teresa that the fruit of faith is love, and the fruit of love is service. And there is something in that. And also to remember everything that we do as well as communicators. via TV, and talking about things and talking about success stories is so, so important to world peace.
Absolutely.
I think you're right, Helena. Celebrating success and achievement in the right things is really critical to keep us focused on what is capable, what is possible, what is achieved. Because if we focus too much on the negative, it really kills our motivation. And the last thing I'd like to say is that I would like to actually, call on all women to not look at each other as competitors, and to have, that wisdom to see our capability and what we can achieve if we really, unite forces and respect, and as Helena said, have tolerance and acceptance for one another, not a description or a definition or a fear of each other. We should work together, and we should fight the beliefs and the propaganda and the stereotypes that, someone's going to take something away. We are far more capable, and we will actually achieve more together if we support one another and not be scared of one another and be challenged by one another. So I put it out there that women give each other a hand up and a break. Yeah.
Well said, Daisy. Thank you. And I'd like to share, just in addition to what you all said, I agree with education, not just book smarts, but get out and see the world, whether it means traveling or if it means watching programs like this. Have an understanding of how other people are living in other parts of the world, and what other people are going through, as opposed to just thinking that everyone and everything should be just like you and your community, your town, your state, your country. And then to further the point about judgment, really learning how to listen with an open heart and an open mind and an open spirit, as opposed to, well, this is the way that I do it. This is the way that we do it. We've always done it this way. Let's get rid of that and just be open to learning from each other. They're my thoughts.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you,
Dr. Jack.
Thank you. Our next show is coming up, and it's a woman's prerogative. And our topic today is the male perspective on the 5 topics that all women love to talk about. So we're going to hear those 5 topics, and we'll see what the ladies think. So thank you again for being here. Anything else anyone wants to add before we leave?
No, good. Thank you very much again for the platform.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.